Welcome to Wine with Wanhee, a new series that I'm starting where I'll drink a glass of wine or three and answer your questions. Now, since this is the first week, we've got no questions. Feel free to put the questions down below in the comments. In fact, I did take some questions on my YouTube. Let me see if I can pull those up. The first question is, any advice for managing overwhelm in studies and in life? This is maybe one of the big topics of the new year, right? You're trying to start the new year and you come up with all these goals. You want to get ripped. You want to build muscle. You want to start pottery and become fluent in Spanish. Like, there's just all these things that are suddenly coming up to the forefront of your imagination that strike you as extremely important. And it happens every year. And I feel it as a content creator / coach because suddenly at the beginning of the year, around January, February, people start flooding in with these questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? Let me tell you a little secret. You're only supposed to do a few things in life. And when you're young, you want to do as many things as possible to find out what it is that you kind of like. And as you get older, it's kind of filtering down. You know the shit you don't like, and you just stick to the things you do like. And this happens in every field, right? Back in my 20s, I used to do every restaurant on the street. Right? I never eat at the same restaurant twice because why would you? Every day is an opportunity for a new experience. As I enter my 30s, it's more about going to the restaurants that I know I like because I've tried so many, and at the end of the day, there's only like 3 to 5 good ones in your neighborhood. You just rotate between them and save yourself the trouble of paying for something that you end up not liking. You see what I'm saying? It's recording. And it happens with restaurants. It happens with your hobbies. You know, I would do every sport on the universe. I even tried polo, rackets, all kinds of posh ass sports in my teenage years. And now I just do jiu-jitsu, gym, and football. Okay? Sure, when I go on a trip to Portugal, I might do some abseiling, like I don't know. But as a genuine hobby, those are the things that excite me. Same with fashion, okay? You don't need to buy everything. There are certain things, certain colors, certain items that you gravitate towards, and you might only focus on those. Do you see? So it's a general theme of filtering down. And this is how you reduce overwhelm in your life, in your studies. Try to focus on 3 things maximum that are going to make you the biggest gains, right? When it comes to studies, just focus on 3 things, 3 subjects, 3 points in an essay, 3 everything, maximum. Okay, it can be 2, it can be 1. Most people get overwhelmed because they're trying to do too many things. Too many exercises in the gym, too many clothes, too many projects, too many side projects, too many friends. Go from too many to 2. This is the secret to making gains in whatever field that you want. I hope that helped. You know, it really does apply everywhere. It's the spirit of minimalism, as you know, probably I talk about a lot on my fitness channel. Next. I don't know how many questions we'll get to, but let's do the next one. Next one is, how did you quit smoking? Let's get into that. Ciao, come stai? My cat, Iru. Her name is Iru, I-R-U. Named after, come here, man. Named after my best friend's cat who passed away, called Amlu. And Amlu apparently means something in Moroccan. It's like a food. It's like a honey of sorts. I think. That's what he told me anyway. You want to see? You want to see this bella gatta? Many people call her fat, but we don't like this. We don't like fat shaming. We're all about body positivity up here. Aren't we? Isn't that right? You fat cat. Anyways. Cool. Let's get into how did I quit smoking? There are many ways to answer this question, okay? One of which is a tactical thing. It's a tactical thing where you say things like, oh, instead of smoking, do this. Instead of smoking, substitute it with tea. And all these action-based protocols that really only work for like 2 weeks. Because then you have one stressful event and you're like, nah, fuck that, I need a cig. Right? So that doesn't work. So it can't be just a surface level tactic. If you want to genuinely quit smoking, you need to first of all attribute a different meaning to smoking. Okay? And I want you to go back to the first cigarette you ever had, or the meaning the cigarette has for you. Now, if you see Che Guevara puffing on a cigar as he talks about revolution, or you watch Netflix and maybe you see Tommy Shelby puffing on a cigarette and the audio is perfect, you hear you hear the cigarette paper just burn and the smoke is just cloudy and it's just beautiful. It looks so tasty. Okay? You see James Dean maybe smoking a cigarette. What do you think? What are you thinking in that moment? You want a ciggy. Even now, as I've quit, when I watch these scenes, I'm like, damn, I want to smoke. Now, most people that started smoking or continue to smoke, they had or have some kind of association with smoking as something that is either maybe cool, it goes with their aesthetic, it's like rebellious. This is kind of how it starts, and then it morphs into a dependency. And we'll get into that next. But essentially, maybe the meanings you attributed to smoking started off like that, and then now it's changed, right? Like if you're fully addicted to smoking, you're not really doing it because it's cool. You're kind of doing it because it's like a thing to do, and it's an addiction. It's a time you spend away from your problems. But what you want to do essentially is, in order to quit, in order to change behavior, is change the associations you have with smoking. I don't have the same associations now that I've quit. Now when I see a guy or girl smoking in the street, I no longer think, yeah, I want to smoke. Like, that looks good. That smells good. That looks cool. Like, what is life anyway? Let me just enjoy it. Like this, this kind of like Parisian, bohemian, romantic vibe energy that you're trying to get out of smoking. I don't think like that no more. I think he probably has erectile dysfunction. or she probably doesn't have good breath when you go on a date. Like, imagine if you thought those things when you associated with smoking. This is how you actually turn off some of the desire. And I want you to think about maybe something you succeeded in quitting by changing the meaning associated with it. And I'm sure if you look deep enough in your history, you'll be able to find something. Like maybe you thought like freaking candies were cool when you were a child, and then you grew up, you were like, that's not nice. It's just for babies. So when you see a candy, you're like, yeah, that's for babies. It ain't for me. That's basically what you want to do with smoking. I've changed my identity to someone that helps people get lean, build muscle, become healthy. So when I look at smoking or just excessively shitty food, I go like, why would I do that? That's not for me. This is genuinely how you quit something. You change the meanings you associate with that thing. Whenever you see a guy smoking on the street, practice saying he's got erectile dysfunction. He probably has many problems in his life. Like, it doesn't have to be true, you see. Like, that's not actually true, right? Che Guevara, like, you know, these cool people, whatever, they smoked and they're fine. But that's kind of how you stop. And the next thing is your environment, right? The biggest way, like back in the day and still in Japan, and I remember when I was living in Austria, like in Vienna, you could smoke inside, like in cafes and in bars, like you can smoke indoors. Back in the day, it used to be like that, right? So when you're in there and you're in your 20s, you're talking about like stuff, and people are smoking, you're gonna smoke, aren't you? Like if you're a smoker watching this, you're gonna smoke, right? So the next biggest powerful impact is your environment. Your environment is gonna make you want to smoke so much, and don't even try to override that shit. You gotta change your environment. You gotta like either set a hard line with these friends that you're hanging out with, or literally remove yourself from those situations where you're going to be tempted to smoke. If that means every time you drink, you smoke, every time you go out and smoke, don't drink and don't go out. Some of you listening might be like, how is that possible? I'm like going out every weekend. That was me too, so, you know, best of luck. But that also changes, by the way. Like, you don't have to go out every weekend, you know. Nowadays, I walk home on a Friday night or a Saturday night and I see people just having fun, like drinking in a bar. And back in the day, I used to be like, OMG, like, I'm in there, you know, I'm in there partying myself. But now I look and I go, they're enjoying themselves, cool, I'm going home. There's zero FOMO. That's what you want to create with cigarettes, okay? The final thing that I'll say, and this is getting long, is you want to look at why you're actually smoking. A lot of the time you're smoking because you want a little break from the flow of things. You want to kind of do something else. You want to keep doing something so you don't have to think about your problems and your anxieties, right? The things you have to do. So you just do the smoking because while you're smoking, you don't have to think about shit that makes you sad. So if you resolve that inner issue and you become aligned to your true purpose and your goals and you're like happy in your life, you probably have less desire to eat processed food and smoke and do all that shite. Next question. Maybe we'll do one more question. We'll do 3 questions for every Wine with Wanhee episode. Next. Let's choose a random question. Okay. How can I take better photos for Instagram? That's the one that popped out. Listen. Okay? Some people say my Instagram has good photos. I don't think so. Okay? There are people that have great aesthetic Instagram, fashion sense, all that. I'm not really the guy you want to model when it comes to Instagram and fashion and looking good and stuff. In my opinion, because I'm a bit of a newbie myself. But I know a couple things when it comes to taking better photos, because as someone that's been in the digital like content creator space, I've cracked the code. I've cracked the secrets. Here are some secrets. Number 1 rule of taking better photos is you gotta take, there's too many rules. First of all, you gotta take photos like let's say like a celebrity. Now, what do I mean by this? When you see a cool photo of a celebrity, did they look at the camera and they're like, they don't do that, right? Imagine if you just screenshotted this. It won't look good. But imagine if you screenshotted this. Boom. You're in the move. You're doing something. You're caught in the act. You got caught by a paparazzi in your natural environment. When you look like you've been snapped while you're doing something or while you're just existing, it looks way more natural. It looks like you're not trying to show off. it looks like you're just living life. And that inherently is cooler than someone who got dressed, made perfect situations, and took a picture like a tourist in front of a shrine. Okay, I had to learn it the hard way. So number one is that celebrity paparazzi snapshot effect. You want to recreate that. Now, of course, does that mean that you were genuinely caught in the act of doing something? Not really. But you could mimic that. You could pose in a way where you're not looking directly at the lens and smiling and doing a V, but kind of just existing and just like moving, and then tell them to just shoot a shot. Okay? And you probably had sometimes somebody show you a pic, like they took a photo of you without you realizing it. And then they were like, yo, look at this. And you were like, shit, that looks kind of good. Have you had that moment? You probably did. Okay, if you never had that moment, then, you know, then I guess you gotta, I don't know. Next, you want to take a lot of photos, right? I was once walking down the riverside with my brother, and we saw these two Korean girls take photos, and the girl taking the photo was like, "Are you ready?" And the girl that was getting the photo taken was like, "Yeah." And then she goes, she's like spamming, machine gunning 100 different photos. Now, you don't need to do this, but every photographer, model, whatever the hell, knows that in order to get one good photo, they need to take 20. Now, if a model, a supermodel, needs 20 photos to get one good shot, how many do you and I need? We need like at least 80 shots. No, I'm kidding. You need a good, I don't know, good 20, good 30, good 40 shots. What does that just mean in a practical sense? It means whoever's taking the photo for you, just click, 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 and then just pick the one you like. That's how you get a good photo. And anyone that pretends otherwise, you know, like, because social media, you pretend like you took that one pic. But come on now. Every girl has taken 100 pics to pick the one that they post. And it's just the nature of life. If you don't look like who's popping right now, if you're not as good looking as, you know, Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio, or who's popping, freaking Margot Robbie, Zendaya, you know, even like if you don't look like them, you're gonna have to take multiple photos, right? So those two things. And the final thing is, you just need to get a little bit comfortable with posing and just being in front of the screen. Like, so you can probably imagine that right now I'm looking at a camera. I'm looking at an inanimate fucking object as I talk. But you, if you're watching this far, you may have felt that there's a naturalness to the way I'm talking, as if you're in the room. And that doesn't just come naturally. It's awkward to stare at an inanimate fucking object and talk like this. But you get better at it and you get used to it. And I don't feel like it's awkward at all. I actually feel like you're there and I'm talking to you like a friend, right? Because I know somebody is watching on the other side. And this comfort with the lens comes with practice, with trial and error, with time. And I always tell this story of like when I went with my friend who's a photographer in Milan. We went to like one of these fashion shows, like, and the models would come out the back after their runway show, and then there'll be all these street photographers like snapping away, and the models would just be like doing all this like weird pose and just looking at each lens, and apparently that's how they get calls for other agencies, because those photographers will post those things and then, right? So it's important to these models, so they would pose for like a couple minutes and then bounce. And when I looked at it, I was like, what the hell are they doing? It was like, it was weird. But it was just seeing these people in their element doing their thing, where they completely owned the fact that the photo was being taken and they weren't shy. And that just showed that it was like, okay, that's a skill, right? Posing and being comfortable in front of the lens is a skill. And look, you don't need to develop this. Like, you might think that all this is fake and just not for you and you don't really care. Fine, great, right? But I guess this person that asked about it wants to take better photos for Instagram so that he can get more girls and girlfriends. So for whoever that asked, that's how you do it. That's it. 3 questions per episode I think is fine, because it allows us to delve into some topics in some depth without getting too long. So there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Maybe this will become a weekly thing. So leave your questions below in the comments. See you next week. See you next week or in a few weeks. Who knows? Bye-bye.